You know what I want to start off talking about today?
What's up?
The podcast world. You know, it's the one thing that I've ever done where everyone involved in it is there to help other podcasters or promote other podcasters. Think about the promotion that goes on during a show. You know, have you listened to this podcast with this person? And I'll put the link in the show notes and stuff like that. And you don't exactly listen to CNN and say, "Hey, have a listen to this interview on Fox News. It's fantastic." The same goes for business and many other things. There's people in the same industry tend to not over promote their, fellow products.
Well, it's like any type of business. The guys are so concerned about having their IP stolen. They're concerned about the protecting who their clients are, and that's that's where that caution comes in. Podcast world seems to be a bit different.
Can I just quickly interrupt before we get too deep into this? Seeing as I've been designated the quality and standards officer for this particular show, I just wanted to start this off with a new procedure that I'm instituting by commencing with the before start checklist, please.
It's not prima nocta, is it?
No, but we realized last week that we had a few technical glitches. So I'm implementing a procedure so that we don't have this again. So humor me on this one.
Go ahead.
Because I'm relying on my flying background to
Do you remember
get
that?
this right. Wow, sort of do. But my before start checklist. Mics are on.
On.
Think so?
Cameras are on.
On.
Oral alerts are all on. Mute.
Check.
So you lost
Check.
me there for a second. Yeah.
And positive mindsets set to the max.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. All right. That's my before start checklist complete.
No, good one. You're right.
We're going to go through this every single week.
Yeah, well, talking of that, I mean, there were a couple of glitches last week on the sound. We've been playing around, and we'll chat about it a bit later on anyway. But yeah, just going back to the whole podcast thing, I found it quite a refreshing thing, actually, where you've got this relatively small industry. I know there are lots of podcasts out there, but it's a relatively small industry. And it's a very... everyone is kind of united in trying to build up the podcast platforms. So there's this element of trying to help or promote or collaborate, and it's one of the few things that I've ever done where that's been the case. I even go back to, I think we've mentioned it a few times with flying. You know, even the guys operating for, Fly Sapphire, there's always a little dig at the guys who are flying for Link and SAA, vice versa. Everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Whereas with podcasting, it's all about, hey, how can we help these guys, or how can we, promote their show? And I think it's because the more popular podcasts are, then the collective gain is so much bigger. If because someone listens to our podcast doesn't mean they don't listen to someone else's. Alex McPhail came here through the week, and from Alex is the host of his High Performance Teams podcast, and Alex always been quick to offer some advice and backwards and forwards, and ourselves as well, offering him a few changes we've made. But it's nice to chat about it and see, hey, how can we make it better? What can you do? What can we do? So we're going to actually have Alex on in a few weeks' time and chat about podcasting and also branding. Alex is one of the guys like us that went out there and focused on personal branding, trying to see what we can do to promote the Bryan Air brand, but also the Brett Mark Preston brand and the Ryan Parrock brand, which is so important these days. So I'm looking forward to that with Alex.
It's really cool that, it's not so much slating, each other. It's constructive criticism, which pushes you to make sure that your show does do that little bit better, adds to the incremental gains, and it keeps us going. It's great.
I think we're picking up a mindset here, which I think has come from a deeper level, because in the aviation community, people share. So you got new up and coming pilots. The other guys are saying, "She's like, I'm going flying. Why don't you come fly with me?
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you a little bit of a trick on flying a King Air, whatever it might be." I've noticed that being involved in aviation, that the guys are prepared to share. So now we're sitting in a situation, Bryan Air podcast, Alex podcasts, everyone involved in aviation. So that whole attitude is there. General aviation has always been like that, and might be a little bit different in the commercial side. But I think it's a great thing. I think it's part of that entire community.
One of the big things here, I mean, such a big attraction here at SimAero is being able to provide sort of mentorship roles for the youngsters that come here and train. And it's so nice to share things, share little successes along the way, and also failures, because we've had our fair share of failures. I mean, let's just stay with the podcast. I mean, last week we fiddling, trying to get the sound to be better. I couldn't edit Brett's sound properly. It was just a nightmare. But there's little tricks to it, and you can only find out those tricks and answers if you take action and start actually doing it. But you have to do it, you have to fail, and then you have to learn from that failure. I think that's the biggest thing I've taken out of this, and that's why I actually started off talking about it today, because it's those little failures. I mean, we start the show, and at the end of it, it's by no means perfect, but then you look at it and say, okay, next week we have to improve on a couple of little things. And I think that's so cool. I mean, talking about the whole collaboration, Ryan, you've mentioned that a few times. We started off last week chatting about the webinar that we're going to host with John Howell. For anyone out there that didn't listen to last week, John Howell has offered his services to the pilot community, the aviation community, aircrew mainly. And we want to host a webinar. We are hosting a webinar, 2nd of March, 6:30 in the evening, South African time. And it's all about harnessing the power of LinkedIn, using the LinkedIn platform to better promote yourself, better promote your personal brand, covering some important topics, your digital persona, digital footprint, how to create a personal profile, acquire more connections, audit your network, source contacts, leverage the search functionality, and which premium subscription to look at to build your network quickly. So we're going to go through a lot of things, obviously all aimed at the pilot community, our way of, I think, collaborating with the pilot community now as well, to also try and bring a lot of our old contacts and friends back. And sorry guys, I know I'm talking a lot here, but there's
nothing different.
Yeah,
that's normal. Standard. I think I should put that in the checklist. But the big thing is, the best thing I did was start a new project with a team. And don't you find a lot of the people that are contacting us are trying to do things alone? And I don't think that's necessary. Brett, don't you... There's value in doing stuff by yourself. I'm not saying go and start a partnership business where you're now stuck with a partner for the rest of your life. But there is a huge amount of value in being able to bounce subjects and topics and thoughts with someone that has a similar knowledge base to you. We've done that continuously, and we've got huge value out of it. We haven't done this alone. I couldn't have done this by myself. Couldn't have done this without you, Brett and Ryan, and vice versa. We all play our role. But I think sometimes we're viewed as we've just gone and done something by ourselves. And I encourage, there's so many guys out there that aren't doing much right now. Why not pick up the phone, give one of your ex-colleagues a call, and see what he's doing. It might give you an idea as to what you can do yourself. And I don't mean, going and applying for the same flying job somewhere, but I mean, you might be sitting on a little gold mine there that you don't know about, but the working together, the collaborating, the chatting, the bouncing ideas off, there's a huge amount of value in that.
Bryan, I learned a long time ago to share. The second you start sharing, you suddenly become abundant in everything. If you're sharing and you hear about a position and you say, she's like, I want to push this out to a couple of mates and say, hey guys, I don't know if it's right for you, but have a look at this. Let me tell you, it comes back in abundance.
Tenfold.
It's tenfold is not even enough.
You will 11x your life.
You will 11x. Oh, geez, like, can we brand that now?
Yeah, 11x.
But that's what is so important, and a lot of people forget about that. There is so much value in just being abundant and sharing with everybody. You know, you spoke earlier a little bit about failure, getting out there and failing and that. You know, failure is driven by fear, but it all comes down to your self-importance. Who do you actually think you are? Are you that important that you can't get out there, try something and fail? Come on, nobody is.
Exactly.
You guys, everybody needs to wake up and say, fail, come on, man. I'm not important enough that I can't fail. So
Exactly.
It's those
critical.
failures where you're able to learn. So
Only
you
way
have
to
to
learn.
fail to actually ultimately improve.
You never learn with success.
Yeah. I mean, it's
It just
also
doesn't work that way.
Oh.
well, there's two important things that I want to touch on here while we're on the subject as well. Is, you know, first of all, with the podcast, not only do you learn through your little failures, just on technical glitches and that sort of thing, but your personal development throughout the whole thing, how you learn to speak better, you know, have a bit more confidence, that
Putting
kind of
yourself out
putting
there.
yourself out there. I mean, this is, you know, it's what we're doing, and we're learning as we go along. So it's, in that respect, it's been great. The other thing is, in terms of working with a team, you know, you get to draw on the strengths of your different characters, and that goes a long way towards the total end result. So yeah, you know, it's very important to get yourself together with the right like-minded people, surround yourself with a positive type of people as well, and
we've been fortunate
from
with
that.
that. We've been fortunate.
Very
I mean,
lucky.
we've collaborated with John Howell,
Mm.
Craig Wood, Alex, and multiple other people that are not involved in the podcast, however, but have found an interest in starting something, being curious about exploring ideas, and I think that's what we've been pushing the whole time.
And
Not only support, but be curious about getting out there and exploring something.
we've been very lucky as well to be here in this Sim Aero environment here at the training center, because we meet people from all over the world. We've had guys this past week, ex-Emirates 380 pilots that are now doing ERJ ratings, and it's so nice to chat with them, chat about their time at Emirates. And a lot of the guys are so positive about the future. Even the Emirates 380 guys are kind of, they're going to be flying at home now, so make the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're constantly in this environment of people that are doing something, and that there's been a massive amount of value that I've got out of that. People are doing ratings, so they are looking at furthering their career, their sort of their skill set, and it's wonderful to be in. So we're extremely lucky that we've had both angles. We've managed, Ryan, we've managed to stay in the field that we love. We're not necessarily flying aircraft right now, but we're in the environment, and that is so important. And I think you'd agree. I think we've actually found our niche in this aviation environment. This is what I enjoy doing. I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy looking at the news. I enjoy, providing a bit of motivation, a bit of encouragement, designing courses, looking at new ways of training. We actually trying to take our training here to a complete new level as well. There's new technology out there that can improve learning. We're exploring all that sort of stuff, so it's wonderful from that perspective. Tie the podcast on top of it, where we're able to once a week bring it all together, talk about it, and try something new and shoot it out there and have a quick beer afterwards. There's nothing really better than that. The part that brings me down is knowing that so many of the guys and girls that we cared about a lot, that we worked with for a long time, are in such dire straits. And not just financially, but mentally more important than financially, because it's difficult to come back from that mental side. Brett, you were talking about self-importance there. That came from I think it came from a podcast that you listened to with Johnny Wilkinson.
Absolutely phenomenal
The
podcast.
best podcast.
You got to put that in the show notes.
No, it will be.
Mm,
The
you
best
have to.
podcast I've ever heard. Johnny Wilkinson, obviously the England number 10, won the World Cup for them. He is being interviewed on a podcast, the High Performance Podcast was called. It's fantastic. Self-importance, being fluid, being able to talk. I'm actually trying to use a lot of those things today myself to not be so tight. You know, I think you guys agree. When, you know, as soon as we put the camera on, the mics are on, there's an element of self-importance. I don't want to mess up because what are people going to say about Bryan?
Yeah.
It's actually not about that.
No.
It's actually about being a little bit more fluid, a little bit more open, being able to say what you think, and not going to, you know, not be overly aggressive on the attack, but just being ourselves. And when you're able to do that with a tight team, a tight unit like we are, success is inevitable in terms of your self-growth. It's a fantastic podcast. It'll be in the show notes. You've got to listen to that podcast. You've got to listen to it.
Being real is the thing nowadays. I mean, the world is not as we know it. It may never be. We don't know. We got to wait to sit this one out. But if you go in and you try and overcompensate, try and cover up who you really are, people are going to pick up on it. And you know what? People actually don't care about that anymore. Everybody is so focused, you know, from a self-importance perspective, you can look at it and say, yeah, you know, what are they going to think of me? Actually, you know what? They don't think a thing about you. They're worried about their lives, what they're doing. So get over this whole attitude thing and just get out there and do something. I mean, we have messed up countless times. I mean,
and not just here. I mean, with many other projects. How many ideas have I come and we're going to do this, guys, and then we start doing it, and then we find little faults in it, and we stop. So
it's exactly that. I mean, if you go back to lockdown last year, you know, you're sitting in the middle of lockdown, you've just lost your job, so you instantly start thinking of what can I do now with, you know, to try and survive. Tried all sorts of things, man, you know. And tripped up on a lot of them, but it's ultimately led me here, and you know, this is the one thing that seems to be really working well, and it's fantastic. We found our rhythm, and we're cracking on with it.
And trying to be consistent as well, which is so key.
Well, we have found our rhythm, but we also have not found our rhythm, because one of the things we agreed upon when we started this podcast is every week we're going to do something better. It can be one little thing, a placement of an
incremental
iPad,
gain,
just do something better. And that keeps us on our toes. That has for 41 episodes now.
Look, sorry.
Okay.
But it's about also staying out of that comfort zone, which you've said many, many times. You just don't get comfortable and keep yourself on the edge.
The struggle. You know, and I think a lot of it comes from the aviation background. John Howell mentioned it on his latest podcast. The aviation community now, let's take this whole story with the vaccines. The vaccines have to be flown around the world. Aviation needs to be promoting the fact that their airplanes are going to have to fly these things around the world. Almost like aviation has been taken for granted. And that's no one's fault. But the aviators and aviation needs to stand up and say, hey, the rest of the world, if you want the vaccines, if you want to travel, if you want globalization to continue, then aviation is an absolute necessity. So let's start promoting it a bit more. This business of also being, you know, mentioning that you're a, second question you ask any man, what do you do? Be proud to say, I'm a pilot. I'm an aviator. That's what I do. Let's stop this nonsense of, you know, under promoting this industry. It's a critical industry in the world. It's critical for globalization, connecting people, even more so in places like Africa, where you can't just jump in your car and drive from, you know, A to B. You often need an aircraft to do it. So from a connecting people, it's vital. Let's promote aviation now, not hide aviation behind the back door and say, you know, we'll wait till things turn around. Aviation will have to be part of that turnaround. Things will not turn around without aviation. You need aviation there to turn things around. So let's promote it a bit more, push it a bit more, be proud of the fact that we're in this industry.
The problem that the world sits with aviation, they take it for granted. It's always been there. There's going to be an aeroplane. They're going to be able to jump on a flight somewhere if they need to go. So we're sitting in the same boat at the moment. There's a lot of the times it's just been, oh well, whatever, it'll come right. And if you're sitting outside of the aviation industry, that's what your natural thought pattern will be. A little bit different when you're inside of it. So when you're inside of it, promote it. Even if you're no longer flying, as we said, we've spoken time and time again, if you're doing a LinkedIn thing, you're not necessarily just saying to everybody, I'm a pilot. You're going to tell people it is part of who you are, but the skills that are attached to it.
Yeah, the skill set attached to all those things is what's so critical. I want to chat to you, Brett, about something now. There's a little bit of a looming threat here. When this turnaround happens, which it will, we are going to be in a situation where the big players, I'm talking the Ryanairs, Ethiopians, Emirates, Qatar, these guys, are going to be in a position where they could possibly start underselling a lot of the smaller guys, pull a SAA on everyone else, because, they've lost a lot already. It'll be, Ryanair, for example, they're very well positioned for when things do turn around, because the business still exists. They've got the right aircraft. As far as I know, they haven't laid off mass people that they can't start hitting the ground running from day one. So they're in a very good position to own the market even more so. I mean, their market share is going to go up massively for a lot of these big airlines. So the threat now, a lot of the smaller players find themselves in, is will they be undersold? I mean, will the big guys take a little bit more of a loss just to take out the competition, that one final nail in the coffin? That's a bit of a threat that I think, places, authorities like IATA could probably get involved in as well. There's a lot of stuff with collaborating with governments and whatnot, but that's an area where quite critical that we don't go and kill off. We spoke about last week the dire straits here of the charter industry. The last thing we really want is Airlink now flying to every single lodge in a caravan, to kill off the charter industry.
Brian,
because
the problem is this is not a threat. This is reality, and it's been going on for the last 50 years.
Maybe just more highlighted now.
Well, we got to highlight it because it's happened in every other business. You've got your Walmart, you've got your Macros, you've got your Pick and Pays, you've got your Spars and your Woolworths. Where's the mom and pop shop? Where's the little grocery store? Where's the cafe? I mean, they're few and far between. So that's been history. So the bigger you are, the more money you have, you're going to destroy everything around you. The only way it's ever going to stop is for the man in the street, you and I, and everyone that listens, to step up and say, I'm sick and tired of paying exorbitant prices at a Woolies. Okay, bad example because I like it. But I'm going to go and buy from a mom and pop shop, and I'm going to support them. So that's where the change is going to happen. It's not going to come through a big corporate saying, you know what, shame, let's pull back.
I think there has been a bit of a drive towards that. I mean, I've certainly seen it in a lot of things that I've been looking at. There is definitely an awareness to support your local community, your local industry through all this, because so many people have lost their jobs from those big corporate giant companies and have run off now and started their own things. So I don't know. I'm going to sort of remain optimistic that it won't be as cataclysmic as that. It will.
I honestly hope you're right, and that's what's needed. Every single one of us needs to go and support those little startups.
Yeah.
I mean, we had in previous episodes numerous startups, and that's the idea: support them. We didn't walk in and say, "Well, geez, guys, here's a Woolworths packet. Please support Woolworths." So let's hope that actually carries on, and we can find ourselves in a different place in a very short period of time. If there was that support for one another.
Oh, Brett, you're 100% right. I mean, it's happened across the board. We've seen it, Amazon, it's taken over Apple, Google, all these sort of major corporations take over. And I think, like with everything in aviation, it's always a little bit slower catching up. It's a conservative industry. It's always a bit slower, but maybe this whole pandemic has accelerated that. But it has done one other thing. Very difficult now for startup airlines to get any financing unless it's some sort of venture capitalist that comes along, pumps money in. You're not going to get new companies going to banks to start up a new airline. That's not going to happen. So it does leave the door open for existing companies that are there and to become the best in that field. Because it's only going to be the companies that are best in that field that are going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
The rest are going to fall away. We've seen it already.
Yeah.
So I suppose if you're in it already and you can stay in and you can get through this period, it does open a massive door. We're talking about new companies. And I don't like talking about the whole SACS palaver because I worked there a long time and it's obviously close to me. But, this whole story, Fly SACS was the preferred bidder for this new SACS version 2. And there was a lot of talk about their crowdfunding platform through Uprise Africa. I see an article here. The seed funding will instead be raised by an anchor investor who will recapitalize SA Express and take the full ownership of the airline to get it off the ground, according to the group spokesperson. Crowdfunding is not completely off the table. Just stop right there. Wasn't the whole purpose of this that it was ex-employees, that it was crowdfunding? Suddenly it's a 180-degree turn. And it's things like that makes you not trust this deal one little bit.
No.
Well, I got to ask the question, was it not because of crowdfunding failure? Because that is a common problem with crowdfunding.
Of course it was.
No.
But why can't we just say that's what it was?
No, because
We worked at the bloody place and we don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
So you read these things in the paper week on week. Now, let's read these things from someone else's perspective. We're very lucky. We're doing this. We're doing a few other things. We've managed to position ourselves in a decent position. Now, there's a lot of guys that read these things, and man, does that take the wind out of your sails.
Yeah.
You almost got to be very careful about what you read and how you read it, because something like that can knock you off your perch. South African Airways, 5 billion they now have secured from the Department of Public Looting. And that's obviously for their severance packages. So that's a positive thing. But now all of a sudden you got a lot of the guys obviously now excited, waiting for this money to come. Spent a long time without any funding. So, but it needs to come. It's one thing to say they've secured the money, but the trust in these enterprises has gone.
That's the problem we spoke about with the mom and pop shop. You got government. Okay, can't use them as an example, but it's reality. They raised that 10 billion. Where did it go? To pay off the banks, the big banks, not the people of the country, not the people who work for SAA. They focused on the banks. Now there's another 5 billion. What is the likelihood it's going to go to the employees? As much as they say it's going to.
Well, this was ring-fenced, I believe, to go to the employees. But whether that happens or not, and obviously there's a lot in the news about, the SAA guys haven't been paid a long time. I feel like putting our hands up as well and saying, well, the SACS guys haven't been paid
at all.
And there is no news story about their ring-fenced severance package money. So it's very difficult for a lot of guys. Everyone's got their own difficulties right now. But these news articles, a lot of them are poorly written, poorly investigated, and it's not good. Not good for the mindset. Not good for people that are out there trying to push themselves, better themselves.
That's why you have to get yourself to a state and a stage in your life that it does not matter what anybody else does. No matter what is happening around you, you've got to be in a situation where you are self-sufficient in some way or another. Even if it's self-sufficient in positive thinking as a start. Getting out there and saying, I don't care what happens now. I am going to make this work. I am going to win regardless of the situation around me.
It's on that. It makes me think of, and I have to mention this because it's also something that's very close to home. But like my younger brother, who's been going through some serious health issues the last couple of months. He's really been hit by a rough patch. I can't think of one person that's had more hard luck in the last 2 years.
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of unfortunate events in his life, but man, has that young chap shown the world what it is to be resilient in the last 2 months. I just have to give a shout out to him, tell you, Brett, I'm really proud of you for showing the strength and the courage that you are, because you're giving me the energy to be more positive.
Well, all of us, actually.
And it's inspiring, and it just gives me hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You can find your way out of any situation. So,
well, I've never met you both, but you've spoken so much about him, and he is exactly that. He's got that resilience. He's got that ability in him to say, doesn't matter what actually happens. Yeah. I'm going to come right. I'm going to step out of this. That is the epitome of what humans need to do as individuals and as groups.
And he's at it rough. And I think it's something like that, Ryan, that also puts things into perspective. So you haven't had a salary, you haven't had this, you haven't had that, but you throw a health issue on the side, it puts things into perspective. I've got, my brother-in-law's been through very tough health things. I've seen the effect it has on the direct family. Man, take a financial issue any day before one of those. It's remarkable what he's done. Shout out to Brett. And I like the whole thing where you got 3 bank accounts. You've got one that money goes in. You've got one where you learn, and one where you build your brand. And you need to be filling all 3 of those accounts. Pointless only filling one. Now, a lot of guys can't fill where the money goes right now, because not much money around, not much money going in. But you can build your learning account, and you can start to push your personal brand. This is why the LinkedIn thing for us has been so critical. This is why we want to help people use that platform, because that's a very easy way to fill 2 of those bank accounts without putting any money in.
Exactly.
That's why it's so critical.
But Bryce, the second you realize that filling those 2 bank accounts, which is free, takes a bit of time, and that's pretty much it. Time, consistency. But as soon as you start doing that, you don't need to fill those 100% by any means. Just start trickle feeding them. Yeah. It's amazing how the financial bank account starts going up.
Exactly.
It's linked.
They linked.
There's no doubt about it.
They linked. They all linked one way or another. They linked.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've you might notice there's a few different microphones around. Obviously, one of the things we've picked up, we got to where we could with our previous setup. This isn't complete just yet. We're actually going to be adding a few other things. We're putting a mixer in there. We're going to be using headphones. We're trying to improve the show, and we're going to take it to the next level. So there might be 1 or 2 episodes we're still finding our feet. That's all part of it. Bear with us. Keep listening, keep supporting, keep subscribing, sending it on to your friends and family. It'll help us. We've invested in the show, and we want to provide a better product. We want to also be an example of 2 or 3 guys that started in an office a year ago with a rubbish setup and rubbish topics to talk about and rubbish everything, and have progressed into something that's a little bit more, something that we're proud of, and something that has longer legs for the future. So that's something that is important to me. It's important to not to show off, but to show me that we are progressing. So you'll notice a few different mic setups. Brett's got a new mic, myself as well, all running through USB-C cables, which makes a difference. But we will be adding the, XLR stuff. I know that's foreign to a lot of you, but in the
it's foreign to a lot of us.
The mixing world and the sound world, it's quite an important thing. This is a whole new learning curve for us, but we want to leverage this as well into other areas. We're not just doing this for the podcast side. Obviously, sound it's become so critical. How many Zoom calls do you have a day, Brett, where you have to sit there on the other side of a computer, and how irritated do you get where the sound is so poor on the other side, and the video quality? So all this is helping, not just here, but it's helping with our way we're doing training here at SimAero. It's helping with the way we're communicating with clients. We're setting up our own webinars for aviation training as well. And it's allowed us to take all those other areas to a complete new level. So it's I won't say strange that it's done that, but it's been this this podcast that has been the catalyst for so many other things, which is why I think we hold it so close to our hearts. But I'm really worried here, guys, because there's some people that tuned in today to listen to aviation news, and they haven't got too much of that. But
I think they would have tuned in today to listen to aviation news because they can't read any aviation news because there isn't any aviation.
There's very little aviation
There's very
news
little
out there. The industry is hanging on. They're waiting for this turnaround to happen. I don't want to say that no one's been proactive. I listened to a show by the CEO, I believe, of Air Greenland. They were talking about, their whole plan for this thing, and there's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of let's see what's going to happen. Here in South Africa, we've got the same sort of stuff. Emirates now, Ryan, they have, I think they suspended flights now till the 10th of March.
Yeah.
So that's gone a bit further. Customers holding tickets, by the way. I suppose you'll have to check with your travel agent or Emirates. They're very helpful with it. Virgin Atlantic, they've extended their ban to and from South Africa. They might not resume until April. So there's a lot going on. I saw an SAA 340 sitting on the Delta apron in Joburg today.
Yeah.
What's all that about?
That's been standing there for like the last week. Apparently they've had some sort of a flight that they've been trying to arrange to go to Munich or Frankfurt for some other reason.
Off the ground.
But they haven't even managed to get that right. One flight. So
what's that from? Non-payment, technical?
They say potentially non-payment.
Yeah.
So.
Well, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder
like
who's flying that aircraft. Is it
It'll be interesting
SAA
to
guys?
see.
Or
If the pilots are...
Because there is no
listening.
SAA right now.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's SAA livery on the aircraft,
Exactly.
is it, what's the story?
If no one's been paid to go and fly, I mean,
Who's
why
going
would
to fly
you be?
it?
Yeah,
And are they getting paid to do that flight?
Who
or
knows?
is this a free flight? Because you can't do that
it's probably government
if you're under business rescue.
something.
So
Yeah, so there's a lot there as well.
I like the fact that Aviation Africa Conference is actually is going ahead. They're doing it in Kigali in July. I hope it happens. It's not a Zoom conference. It's in-person conference.
I wonder if that's going to happen.
So that's going to be brilliant if they can get it right.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned with the news, there hasn't really been much. A lot of what is out there at the moment is just repetitive.
Same old stuff.
Yeah.
I did like Ukraine International doing the flight to nowhere.
For the
over
Chernobyl.
So, I mean, you pay for a flight to nowhere, but it's not all. You get a third eye after you've finished the flight. All free.
Well, I think I'd rather have a third eye than testing positive on the 8th day of your quarantine in the UK. Because then you're up for a bill of a further £1,216, which is equivalent to 4 million rand in South African money. It's now merged that extra charges will apply to guests who are required to extend their stay because of a positive result.
Am I just reading
like
into this money-making scheme?
You took the words out of my mouth. I was just saying, this is starting to sound like a Ponzi scheme.
Are we just going to get ourselves banned here again?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
That does sound like it. There's robots in some hotels in South Africa. Have you seen that? Robots. So if
is
got
that an international term of a traffic light?
Yeah. No, I'm talking like Elon Musk robots here. They go up to your room to serve your food and beverages. Only if you've got symptoms. So flu-like symptoms, apparently, the robot will be sent to your room to deliver food and water and stuff like that. So these things are cruising around the hallways there at various hotels.
Wonder if the robot expects a tip.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
But
No.
anything else, guys? I mean, other than this week, I said let's just talk a little bit more fluidly about where we are in this whole process, where we're going. We, of course, are we're going to be here every week. We want to carry on. We need the support from the people that listen, the people that have been listening. You know, we're doing it for you guys, and we'd like to be able to promote this even more, to get out there a bit more, so that more people listen to us, because we like to think that we are being positive, being motivational, and encouraging to other people. We also have a big passion in trying to pick up little tips and tricks that aren't necessarily ours, but that we've picked up through other sources, whether it's been online on LinkedIn or other podcasts, or people that we meet coming in and out of the Sim Aero facility. Little things that we pick up along the way, we want to actually push those things out to you. So offer little tips and productivity tricks and hacks along the way. That's sort of the one thing that's really driving me.
It's driving all of us here, and that's bringing that positivity and motivating people. We don't have all of that in ourselves.
No.
We are searching every single day. We didn't when we started this suddenly say, she's like, we're fully motivated and we're totally positive. Not a chance. We had to work, and we still work at it every single day, and that's why we're gonna bring all this stuff in, because nobody has time to listen to everything, but we've got three sets of ears here listening as much as we possibly can, and if we can bring it and share it with everybody here, that's the goal.
And I'm nervous about today's show, because this is different to any other show that we've done. So when we get sent out, there's not that normal anxiety or the nerves along the way. That's there. But I go back, having the team, having the group, man, it makes life easier, because we've tried something new, we've done it together, so I think that's today's bit of encouragement.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things that Johnny Wilkinson said in that podcast. Sometimes you just have to remember that you need to live in the now, and you got to plan for the future and everything, but just live in the now. And a lot of things that you do, you also just have to wait and see.
Yeah. So what that means is, let's just enjoy doing this podcast.
Exactly.
What happens to it later,
we'll see.
Yeah.
Well,
but we can deal with it.
Yeah.
If you're living in the now, it allows you to actually have a look around and see the door that is open slightly off your peripheral that you can actually open, as opposed to saying, that's where I've got to be, that's where I've got to be.
Yeah.
You're not living in the now. So
Exactly.
do that, and you'd be surprised what is actually around you and available to you.
Yeah, tech tip for this week, productivity tip. Listen to that Johnny Wilkinson podcast. It is superb. It'll change your mindset straight away. He's totally different to how I thought he was as a character, and it's brilliant. It's nothing short of brilliant. It'll be in the show notes.
He's humble. He's done a lot of work on himself.
Man, he's done a lot of work, and it shows that doing that work can actually. We're
Pays
as
off.
guilty about the things he spoke about as the next
Exactly.
person.
Oh,
I
for
mean.
sure.
It's just a nice reminder that everyone is human, and we've all got the same,
Yeah. Yeah, that makeup, we've all got the same. It's your mindset up here. But guys and girls, thank you so much. Please subscribe to the show, pass it on. It'll really mean a lot to us. As I said, we have invested in the show. We are going to continue. We are not stopping this anytime soon. We're going to expand in far more areas. So support us, and we want to support you. Until next week, cheers for now.
Cheers, guys.
stand by for maneuvering.